There's a problem in AA today. It's a mental health crisis, and it's not being addressed properly. Let's break it down. Welcome back to this channel, Hardcore Spirituality. I'm Johan, your host. I have over 30 years sober, and not just sober, but I have over 30 years sober in the AA program. These are my observations. What kind of person walks into an AA meeting? It's a person that's been addicted to a substance for years, and that substance has affected their ability to respond to life in a normal fashion, let's say. That substance consumed on a daily basis has affected their ability to function in society. What's common amongst drunks is the drunk stories. And if it's put in a proper perspective, talking about what it was like and what happened is a good thing. People who for years and even decades who have consumed alcohol on a daily basis have trained their mind to respond to life events in ways that are abnormal. We have humans an inner dialogue going on every day, self-talk. When situations arise, and we were raised in such a way or educated in such a way, we've learned how to deal with life's situations. You could say with the thought of ending a crisis going on, the thought of how do I get through this civilly, let's say. And drunks don't have that inner dialogue, that self-talk, the same as other people. I apologize if you hear the noise in the background. I'm in my kitchen, the window's open, and there are some workers in the back. What do I mean when I say that drunks don't respond to daily occurrences like other people? Years and decades of drinking have separated drunks, for a lack of better words, of interacting with what's going on around them in a normal fashion. Their main priority every day is to get, when they get up, is to get a drink. A lot of them drink all day. Quite a few drink into blackouts. And when something occurs in their life, in a way, it's not that they can't handle it. When something occurs that they don't expect, it interrupts their main purpose of the day, drinking and getting drunk. Let me repeat that. A person that wakes up and they plan their day around drinking, they've been doing it for years or decades, something happens that they didn't expect. It's not that they can't handle it. What happens is, in their mind, it's interrupting their daily routine of drinking, because their brain is wired. This is what I do every day, get drunk. In a lot of cases, perhaps they didn't get to drink so far that day and something happened. Well, now I need a drink because I can't cope with this. And so they get drunk intentionally. That's their coping mechanism. And just like that unexpected event interrupts what they plan their day around, drinking, if a person has something happen that they can't cope with and they get drunk over it, that's the coping mechanism. If they're approached by another person or more than one about resolving the issue, well, now you've interrupted their coping mechanism because they don't want to deal with the issue. I'm not saying it's wrong. It's a mental illness at this point. When a person deliberately gets drunk to cope or not cope with daily life occurrences. And so when they're approached to try and resolve a problem, it gets worse. They act out. They get aggressive, maybe even violent, because you've interrupted their coping mechanism, their coping habits. I'm self-taught in quantum mechanics, quantum physics. I understand how the brain works, how the brain is wired. We wire the brain. Years and decades of responding to typical life situations are now ingrained. You could say that after a long period of time, drunks don't think. They automatically go into the mode that's ingrained in their mind for years. I'm gonna get drunk. And then if they're approached they get aggressive, they get violent. And it's been going on for years or decades. This is how they react to life's problems. Have you ever heard of the term fight or flight? It's in us. It's in our DNA, our cells, fight or flight. From our ancestors, thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of years ago, fight or flight. In the times we live in, however, you could say through psychology, you could say because of education on morality, right from wrong, we've learned ways to cope. So it doesn't always have to be a fight or flight situation. You approach me about a problem, I'm going to fight you about it, or I'm going to run away. Well, our ancestors may have done that. In civilization, we've learned other ways to cope with daily situations. A man or woman comes into an AA meeting and they've been living fight or flight for years and decades. And not just that, they've altered their thinking using a substance, alcohol. This is where the mental and emotional problem that these people have is untreated and even aggravated by what's said at those meetings. A friend of mine a long time ago, we were having this discussion about untreated mental illness. And he said when he's at meetings, he just pictures all the people in hospital gowns, in a sanitarium situation. Think about everything I just said. Years and decades of responding inappropriately to inappropriate behavior. Years and decades. The brain is wired. So the first step in recovery is abstinence. The second step is to do all the steps, to go through the steps, to practice those steps, to work those steps as honestly and thorough as you can, to achieve a spiritual awakening, which is described in the back of the big book as a profound personality change sufficient to bring about recovery. A spiritual awakening is described as a profound personality change sufficient to bring about recovery. I believe it's in the doctor's opinion, where it's talked about a psychic change. Paraphrasing, ideas, concepts, and motives that were once the guiding forces of these people are cast aside, and new ideas, concepts, and motives are adopted. Old ideas and motives are cast aside. What are they? Fight or flight. I need a drink. That's how I'm going to respond to this situation. Those ideas, concepts, motives, and there's more. I'm just mentioning a few. Those ideas, concepts, and motives are cast aside, and new ideas, concepts, and motives are adopted. What are the new ideas, concepts, and motives that are adopted? Well, it should be what's in that book, steps 1 through 12. In 1988, when I first came around, my sponsor, after a few months, and there weren't many meetings back then, in about a 30-mile radius, maybe over a week period, maybe there was 5 to 7 meetings. And a lot of them we had to travel because the home group only had 2 the whole week. So we used to converse back and forth to these meetings. Now, it's not when we have a meeting before the meeting and a meeting after a meeting. No, it's not. It's getting to know your sponsor, the person you're relying on for guidance on how to live sober and what the purpose of those 12 steps are. And that is to have a profound personality change sufficient to bring about recovery. That the ideas, concepts, and motives that once were the guiding force in your life, I plan my day around a drink, you insulted me, I'm going to get drunk. Oh, you're approached about a situation and you don't want to handle it reasonably, so you act aggressively or even violently. Those old ideas, concepts, and motives are cast aside and new ones are adopted. And that's not happening because people don't practice the steps. So a newcomer walks in the meeting. Now, originally in AA, when there was a person, let's say, that was designated as, here's a drunk that we can work with. We're going to try to work with them and tell them what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. That involved 1 or 2 people. They'd go to a hospital, usually. They went to sanitariums, they went to courts, they went to jails looking for these people. But it was 1 or 2. Now a person walks in the meeting, they turn attention to that person, and they're getting blasted from all different angles by 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 people. And a lot of times, these people don't all say the same thing, except go to meetings every day. Don't drink, don't think, and go to meetings. Don't drink, don't think. Don't think, don't think, don't think. Maybe somebody comes to a meeting and something happened and they said, well, I thought about this, and well, then later on I decide, oh, you're thinking too much. Analysis paralysis. Don't think. And this is where these people who have mental and emotional disabilities because they cannot react to life's situations appropriately, their mental illness gets aggravated. That was the problem before they got to AA. They didn't think. They reacted. They overreacted. And now people are telling them, don't think again. I've said this before in videos. So one person will say, don't drink, don't think, and go to meetings. And another person will say, if you think of a drink, think it through. You're confusing already confused people. I'll close with this. Remember how I said drunks plan their day around a meeting? I'm sorry. Remember how I said drunks plan their day around getting a drink? Well, what's happening today? People plan their day around going to a meeting. It's not any different than planning your day around a drink. You've just substituted meetings for that pattern of behavior. Have you ever heard somebody say, I need a meeting? That's no different than when they were drunk and said, I need a drink. Have you heard people say, man, I needed that meeting. I feel better afterwards. What happens when you've planned your day around a drink? You got home, drank at home, or went to a bar. You felt better after you had a drink. It's no different. That mindset, that inability to cope with life is still there. Every group has them. They're called benign dictators. They run the group. The group doesn't do anything without their say. And that's a problem too. A problem will arise in a group, and you may have 10, 15 people there. And they all turn and say, well, let's ask this person what they think. You know, the benign dictator, the one running the group, the one with influence over all these people. And you might say, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with it is you have a group of 15 or 20 people that cannot think for themselves. They still can't think for themselves. Well, they're told not to think. Yet there's a sign on the table that says, think, think, think. There is untreated mental and emotional disabled people, a lot of them in AA, that need help. And they're not getting it. In fact, they're getting misinformation.